Now joining us on the broadcast is Michael Sternfield. He's director and producer of the Audio Ramayana. He's from the US. He's also founded the Vedic Audio Knowledge, VAK. Mrs. Sternfield, can you help us understand how did you get interested in producing an audiobook sort of version of the Ramayana?
Thank you, and I will also greet everyone with Ram Ram and Ram Sita Ram. By the way, in the US here, just so you know, you can see I'm wearing many layers of clothes. It's minus 40 degrees Celsius here this morning in Iowa, where I'm based. And that also leads, in answer to your question, is where I live in Iowa is the home of Maharishi International University, founded by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. I actually did my master's degree in Vedic science. And while I was in that program, I've always had a love for great epics, whether it's Star Wars or the Odyssey with Ulysses. And finally, when I found Ramayana, I thought, this is the greatest epic. I mean, I could see even the Odyssey from Greek mythology was like a small chapter within this grand epic of the Ramayana. And I just decided, my spiritual teacher, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, said everyone should pick one branch of Vedic literature and devote their life or become an expert in it. And I've just spent the last 30 years doing these various productions of the Ramayana, which included a performance here in Fairfield with 600 children in it. It was the coming of Ram Raj. I've spent 7 years recording the first complete audio production of the unabridged Ramayana of Valmiki. Excuse me, it's 75 hours. It's the world's longest audiobook, I believe. And since then, excuse me one second. Since then, I've done various derivatives of that. Last year, I worked on a project called Hanuman's Leap of Faith with the renowned kirtan singer Krishna Das, which is an exploration of every aspect, every passage from the Valmiki Ramayana that Hanuman appears. Now I'm working on a project on Sita. So this is what I keep coming back to. Ram, Ramayana, Ram Raj, Ram Leela. This is my.
So what do you make of what is happening in Ayodhya? Because we say historic, but it seems like a cliche. What significance is of what is happening of the temple being rebuilt?
This is really significant to me personally, spiritually, and I really feel, and this is also inspired by my spiritual teacher Maharishi, that India is getting the heart of India is being restored. Ram is the light of life. Ram is the light of life in the heart of everyone. And when we're restoring the capital of Ram in Ayodhya, the ancient capital of his kingdom, Kosala, in Ayodhya, it's literally restoring the heart value to India of Ram, Ramayana, and Ram Raj. I absolutely believe that the beginning of this golden age, remember when after Sita left, Ram created Ram Raj. No suffering in the kingdom of Ram. 10,000 years of this golden age. And could it be possible that this, not only symbolically, but literally, the restoration of the temple in Ayodhya is maybe the foreshadowing of a 10,000 year period of mini Sat Yuga within the Kali Yuga that we live in.
Okay, so let me pick on that, because you mentioned you are a fan of epics, so you know the story of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. All of us do. Now you can argue that it is very Romano-Christian, and the knights by definition are talking about Christian values. But we take it for what it is. It's about chivalry, about good and evil, and fairness and justice, and good governance and good morality. Similarly, in the Vains, there is a complicated conversation, because when people say Rama Rajya, it is often considered to be only Hindu. That if only you're Hindu, can you understand the concept of Rama Rajya? Is that true, sir, or is there a higher principle involved here beyond religion?
I've just disproved it, because I totally understand it. So, meaning this is an archetypal concept that we've had throughout Western literature as well. This idea of utopia, utopian civilizations, this period of a golden age. And in all the Western fairy tales, when the king returns to the land, particularly when the queen returns to the land, then from Snow White, when Prince Charming comes and gives her the kiss, all of a sudden the land is fertile and there's wealth and abundance and fullness and happiness among the people. So this concept, when there's the reunification of the king and the queen, or in this case, we can go to the deepest and the subtlest level, Shiva and Shakti, Purusha and Prakriti. When there's a reunification of this divine masculine and divine feminine energy, prosperity, fullness, happiness reigns. And that essentially was what Ram Raj really was. So this concept is very familiar to us in the West. We just call it by different names. But there is, throughout civilization, there's been this concept of a utopia, of an ideal civilization, of a golden age. This is something that's archetypal, it's dear in people's consciousness.
Okay. In another context, sir, and let me take that exact same conversation a bit further. Mr. Sternfield, now when we say that this is the story of the Ramayana, it's an epic. Perhaps it's not been made in the biggest movie yet. But what is your audience? Who are the kind of people who would want to listen to, even in part, a 75-hour long audio book? Who's the audience? Is it an audience that is already familiar with or is by definition of ethnic Indian origin or Hindu origin who's interested, or is there a larger audience?
Well, what you've seen, the Ramayana has spread throughout the world through Thailand, Burma, Indonesia, Vietnam, Buddhist, Muslim countries. And it's also spread to the West. For example, there is a cultural center in Santa Cruz, California, that every year, we have a tradition in the United States that every year in December they perform the Tchaikovsky ballet, The Nutcracker. But in Santa Cruz, California, they do the Ramayana. So this is something that's spread throughout. And I've been teaching the Ramayana and working with children with the Ramayana here in the US now for 30 years. And because it's this archetypal story that resonates on a deeper level of experience with everyone, even if they weren't culturally brought up in it, they can resonate it. I've seen this over and over again.
Okay.
So what I've experienced with my productions, for example, in the early years, it was mostly people who, were involved with the meditation community that I'm a part of, who are interested, many people who watch the Ramanand Sagar videos. But over time, and that's why I began to do these shorter distillations, 7 hours instead of 75 hours. University libraries, many university libraries purchased it for their collection. But I'm telling you, my audience is not only Indo-Americans or NRIs. There are people all over the world who purchase it. My international demographics of the people who purchase this, it's really all over Europe. In fact, most of my customers, I would say, are European.
Interesting. Okay. So now, in a context of such kind of revivalism, I, for example, have been to the Vatican. You don't have to be Catholic per se to admire the Sistine Chapel or see the statue of Pieta and be really deeply moved by it at a human level. So then Ayodhya, what does it then become? Does it become a place where all peoples of many faiths can come and visit and discover something about life and spirituality and good versus evil, or is it per se then a Hindu destination?
Well, I'm Jewish. I was brought up in a Jewish family. For us, we have the Promised Land, Israel. That's the Promised Land. Ayodhya, especially from the influence of Balram Singh and also someone that is working on with me on this Sita project, Acharya Shunya, who's also from Ayodhya. For me, Ayodhya has become the Promised Land. This is the ancestral home of Ra. And because I was influenced personally. Maharishi wrote a book in 1992, before the mosque was torn down, called Ram Ramayana, Ram Raj, Ram Leela. And in this book, it was quite extraordinary, his anticipation of the future. Meaning, early 1992, this book was released. That when Ram is restored in Ayodhya, heaven will be tempted to come down to earth. And I always had that ideal vision in my heart. And now, for the inauguration of the Ram Mandir in Ayodhya, to me, it's absolutely a miracle. Also based on this influence from this book that I've had since 1992, wondering, would this ever happen? Could this ever happen? And it's also extraordinary. Let me tell you, maybe you heard about that there was this course of 10,000 meditators who gathered in Hyderabad, spiritual luminaries from all the different spiritual groups came together in Hyderabad. It just ended yesterday. This 10,000 course. Now, this 10,000 course also was to enliven, to have as a group, 10,000 people meditating together, to send these waves of purity and sattva out into the environment. And isn't it so interesting that literally a week later, the inauguration.
Interesting.
I find that
all right. Okay. Before I wrap up, quick last question. So in a context where within India and even outside, the often conversation seems to be that, look, India as a country is in a war with itself, right? It can't figure out between this Hindu identity and these 200 million Muslims who live here and many other faiths. Buddhism was, of course, born also in India, and that these are poles apart, that they can't find a place where they can agree on things. Is that a perception that is now become endemic about India, that India is a country broken by religions?
I mean, we see it happening in two places in the world that's extreme, that are melting pot countries. For example, what's happening in Israel, in Palestine. Even though they are brothers, the Israelis and the Palestinians, they seem impossible to come together. And the same thing in India with the Hindu and the Muslim population. How is it ever going to work out? And this is what I think what Bala said at the beginning, is that, the soft diplomacy of the Ramayana, and also even more so than that, the principles of Dharma expressed in the Ramayana. I mean, Ram is the personification of Dharma, which is on one level is the right codes of conduct, doing the right action. But on a deeper level, Dharma is this evolutionary flow of the universe. And this evolutionary flow in the universe to greater and greater wholeness, greater and greater knit together wholeness of life. That's totality, Brahman. Okay. And that, I think, the Ramayana could possibly usher in this period.
Okay, thank you for painting a very refreshingly hopeful picture of the future, given the complexities of world affairs as we speak. That was Michael Sternfield. And where can we find the audio Ramayana, sir? I'm assuming it can be found online?
Audio.com, RAMAYAN, and then AUDIO, RamayanAudio.com.
Okay, appreciate it. Thanks for your time, sir.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.